I don't think there was one big dramatic moment, just a realization that spending 30 years in corporate in that 9 to 5 had been enough. I was tired and I was burnt out and I needed to make a change. When I was younger, I could put the extra hours in with no problem. I could work the overtime, I could come in early and stay late, and I worked weekends too. But as I got older and I had my son, it started to get a little bit more difficult. But I continued to work the long hours and the overtime. I needed to climb that corporate ladder. I needed to prove myself to these people that I was good enough, that I was a good employee, and that I worked hard and that I deserved that raise. After my son started to get a little bit older, I was working remote, which was perfect for me. I loved working independently. I liked working from home. I liked being there for my son. But the job still continued to require overtime, require long hours. And my life was changing. My son was my priority, and I needed to be there for him. I was diagnosed then with breast cancer, and that was a few years ago, and knew that I had to take some time off work. I was still working remote, but knew that I needed that time. I had a mastectomy and needed that time to recover. But after a couple of weeks, I started to get worried. My anxiety started to kick in, and I thought, I've got to get back to work. I can't have other people doing my work. Somebody's going to get mad at me. And I did not take the time that I needed to recover from that surgery. And I was back to work within 2 weeks, and I was so tired. I was exhausted. But I continued on. I continued working. And there was nobody there to pat me on the back or to call me and say, thanks for coming back to work. Are you doing okay? Do you need time? But it got to a point where I knew that I was done. I knew that I had to move on to something different. My son was getting older. I wanted to, for a real long time, I wanted to have my own business. And I started to realize that there were other ways to make income. There were other ways that I could have income besides having this job and going through the stress and anxiety that I was feeling. I started to resent the fact that I had to ask for a day off. I had to request a vacation day to take time away from work. And I started to resent the fact that I went back to work after 2 weeks after having a mastectomy, and it just wasn't right. And it was starting to affect my life outside. The anxiety I was feeling because of the stress of the job, it wasn't right anymore. I knew that I needed to make a change. So I am still working the corporate job. I am still doing that. And as I continue to do that and build a side business, build an online business, build something on the side to hopefully allow me to leave that 9 to 5. So what I learned at about year 25 is that nobody in this corporate job actually cares about you. They care about making the money, they care about the client, and as long as you are showing up and doing a good job, they will continue to put the work on you. You are the person that looks fine, and they won't check on you. They won't ask if you're doing okay. They might say occasionally, yeah, you're doing a good job, but they don't really care about you. So you can be exhausted and still look fine, and nobody checks in on you. I didn't burn out all at once. It happened over time. So what I've learned in that 30 years is that loyalty is a one-way street. You give your nights, you give your weekends, you put that overtime in. The company gave you a performance review. It was structured, and you got that 2 or 3% raise, and then you would move on. Corporations are optimized for the client, for the bottom line, for those numbers that you have to hit every month. I started to learn not to take it personally, even though I did for a really long time. But once you see that and just start to realize that you need to make a decision to either continue on that path or start to make your own, you learn that the job will survive without you. But will you survive without having your life? You learn that the job will survive without you. There's been many times that I have had people in my life that have lost their job or left, and within a matter of a very short period of time, they were replaced. That person that passed away, their desk was cleaned out, and they hired somebody to replace them within a week. I also learned that nobody is coming to protect your peace. As long as you continue to show up and you do a good job and you hit those numbers every single month. But once you start to realize that nobody is upstream coming to save you, coming to help you, coming to set those boundaries, and you're the only one that can do that, it's a really clarifying situation. And you finally start guarding those boundaries yourself. So you can be excellent at your job and still be expendable. They will replace you in a second when you leave without a second thought. Nobody's going to care if you leave the company and you did a great job. You handled those files, you closed your files, you were good to the client, and nobody really cares as long as they find somebody to replace you. So the exit does not start the day that you leave. It starts the day that you stop with your loyalty. I did not quit that job. I am still here. And as I started to slowly realize that I wanted something for myself, I spent weekends and mornings starting to build it, starting to build something on my own, and I continue to do that. And I'm still trying to figure that out. So just know it's not too late. It's just your turn. And if you are in your own version of that, go ahead and follow along, subscribe to my channel, and I'll show you what is coming next.